The forest whispered secrets as dusk settled over the Silverfang territory. Shadows stretched long across the dense canopy, and the crisp scent of pine and damp earth filled the air. Arya moved silently between the trees, her senses sharpened by years of surviving on the outskirts of human and wolf territories alike. Each step was measured, each breath controlled, for the forest was alive, not just with creatures, but with omens. Arya had lived in these woods since she could remember. An orphan abandoned to the wilds, she had grown up under the tutelage of the trees and the moon, learning how to read the wind, the rustle of leaves, the flicker of distant eyes. She knew the forest like the lines on her palms. And tonight, it whispered of danger. Far ahead, a ripple of movement caught her attention. Two figures moved along a ridge, their forms barely discernible against the fading twilight. They were scouts, outsiders. Her sharp eyes noted the insignia on their cloaks, the Ironfang clan. They were predators by nature, ruthless in ambition, and their appearance so close to Silverfang lands was no accident. Arya crouched low behind a fallen log, her fingers brushing the hilt of the dagger at her hip. Her heart beat steadily, the rhythm a practiced counterpoint to her racing thoughts. She knew the importance of remaining unseen. She had watched Ironfangs strike before, and she would not allow her territory, or the people she had come to care for, to fall to them without warning. The scouts paused, whispering to each other, their eyes scanning the horizon. Arya's lips pressed into a thin line. She considered her options. A direct confrontation could alert the others, stealth and observation would give her an advantage. She chose the latter, inching closer through the underbrush with the patience of a predator. Then she saw him. Kale, the young alpha heir of the Silverfang pack, was standing at the edge of a cliff overlooking the valley below. His posture was rigid, almost ceremonial, as if he were testing his courage against the world. The wind tousled his silver hair, and his eyes, sharp and intelligent, scanned the forest beyond. Kale had the bearing of leadership, though there was uncertainty in his stance, hesitation born not of fear, but of the weight of responsibility. Arya's pulse quickened. Kale was the future of the Silverfang pack, and yet he was vulnerable, exposed to the scouts lurking just beyond the treeline. She could not allow him to be discovered, not tonight. Her instincts screamed at her to intervene, but caution held her back for a moment. One misstep could mean disaster for both. A twig snapped under her boot, betraying her presence. Kale's head snapped toward the sound, his eyes widening in recognition. Or perhaps alarm. The scouts had seen him too. They froze, realizing that the young alpha was not alone. Arya stepped from the shadows, her dagger glinting faintly in the fading light. "Move away from the edge," she commanded, her voice steady and authoritative. "They are not here by accident." Kale's brow furrowed. "Who?" "No time," Arya interrupted, scanning the ridge. "They've spotted you. If you stay there, you die." He hesitated, torn between pride and the survival instinct that she could see flickering in his expression. Finally, he nodded, stepping back from the precipice. Arya moved closer, positioning herself between him and the approaching scouts. She drew a deep breath and prepared to act, knowing that the next few moments could decide the course of events for both of them. The scouts advanced, confident, unaware of the trap that Arya had silently laid. She had studied their movements, the pattern of their approach, and she knew the terrain better than they could imagine. With a swift motion, she rolled a small rock down the slope, creating a diversion. The scouts instinctively turned, giving Arya the opening she needed. She darted forward, her dagger flashing as she disarmed the nearest scout with precision born of countless encounters in the wild. Another scout lunged, and she sidestepped, using his momentum to send him sprawling into the underbrush. Kale watched, stunned, as she moved with the fluidity of a shadow, every motion calculated and deadly. "Kale," she called without turning, "stay behind me." He obeyed instinctively, the young alpha recognizing the authority in her voice. Arya's focus was absolute, her senses attuned to the rhythm of the battle. She could feel the wind shift, smell the forest floor, anticipate every movement. When the last scout fell back, retreating into the shadows, Arya stood tall, breathing steadily, her eyes scanning the ridge to ensure no other threat remained. Kale approached cautiously, his eyes wide with awe and something else, respect. You saved me." Arya's expression was unreadable. I didn't save you. I prevented you from making a fatal mistake. You should have been more careful. And yet you risked yourself for me, Cale said softly, his voice carrying a note of disbelief. Why? Arya met his gaze steadily. Because you matter, and someone must stand against the world when it comes for you. For a moment, silence stretched between them. The forest seemed to hold its breath, acknowledging the bond forming not through romance, but through necessity, courage, and mutual respect. Cale nodded slowly, a silent agreement passing between them. You should come with me, he said finally. Back to the pack. If you stay out here alone, you'll keep drawing dangers to yourself. Arya hesitated. Endurance was her nature, her shield against a world that had often been cruel and unforgiving. Yet something in Cale's words, in the urgency of his gaze, stirred a thought she had long suppressed. Perhaps some battles were worth joining with others, not alone. I'll consider it, she replied, her tone firm yet thoughtful. The sun dipped below the horizon, leaving the forest bathed in twilight. The shadows deepened, but Arya's resolve remained unshaken. She had faced dangers before, and she would face many more. But for the first time, she felt the stirrings of something beyond mere survival, a purpose intertwined with another's fate. Cale, meanwhile, returned to his pack with a newfound awareness. He had always known he would inherit leadership, but never had he realized the true cost until he witnessed Arya's skill, her courage, and her unyielding spirit. In that fleeting encounter on the ridge, he glimpsed the possibility of a future strengthened by alliance, wisdom, and the unbreakable bond of trust. The forest, silent now but for the whisper of the wind through the trees, seemed to acknowledge the passing of a significant moment. A shadow had crossed the Silverfang lands tonight, and with it, a protector had emerged, one who would challenge, guide, and ultimately stand beside the young Alpha in ways that neither could yet comprehend. As night fully descended, Arya retreated into the depths of the forest, unseen but ever watchful. Cale's thoughts lingered on her, and despite his pride, he could not deny a deep gratitude, and an instinctive understanding that the path ahead would be far different with her by his side. And somewhere deep in the forest, the Ironfang scouts regrouped, unaware that their intrusion had already set in motion a chain of events that would reshape the destiny of the Silverfang pack forever. Dawn broke over the Silverfang territory with the soft glow of pink and gold spilling across the dense forest canopy. Birds sang hesitantly, and the morning mist clung to the moss-covered ground like a ghostly veil. Arya emerged from the shadows, her boots barely making a sound as she navigated the familiar paths she had traversed for years. She had spent the night thinking, weighing her options. Cale's words lingered in her mind, an invitation, but also a demand. Come with me, back to the pack. Her instinct was to refuse, to return to the solitude she knew best. Yet something deeper tugged at her, a sense of purpose, a recognition that her skills, her courage, and her vigilance could protect more than just herself. The Silverfang pack's stronghold came into view, a sturdy fortress of stone and timber nestled between the cliffs and the forest. Smoke spiraled from chimneys, and the sounds of activity echoed faintly. Sentinels patrolled the walls, their armor glinting in the dawn light, and Arya's trained eyes noted every detail. The gaps in defenses, the patterns of patrols, the way the younger scouts stumbled over the uneven cobblestones. Cale met her at the gates, his posture tense but deliberate. His silver hair caught the morning light, giving him an almost ethereal appearance, and his sharp eyes studied her as if measuring her resolve. You came, he said, a statement rather than a question. I said I'd consider it, Arya replied, her tone careful. She didn't want to reveal her uncertainty, nor did she intend to appear weak. She had survived on her own for too long to let anyone mistake hesitation for fear. Cale nodded, and together they stepped inside the stronghold. Guards greeted him with bowed heads, but their eyes flickered with curiosity as they glanced at Arya. She was an unfamiliar presence, an anomaly in the hierarchy of the pack, and she could feel their scrutiny like a weight pressing against her shoulders. Cale led her through the halls to the council chamber, where the elders awaited. The chamber was circular, with stone walls etched with the history of the Silverfang pack. Torches flickered, casting warm, dancing light over the faces of those seated around the central table. This is Arya, Cale announced, his voice steady. She will be joining us, officially, as my protector. A murmur ran through the room. One of the elders, a man with graying hair and a sharp gaze, spoke first. An outsider protecting the heir? Do you understand what you ask of us, Kale? I understand, Kale replied evenly. Her skills are unmatched, and her judgment is sound. I trust her, and she will trust us if we allow it. That is enough. Arya inclined her head slightly, acknowledging their doubt without confrontation. She had faced skepticism before, and she would face it again, but she had never shied from proving her worth. The council deliberated for some time, their questions probing her past, her motivations, and her abilities. Arya answered each question with clarity and precision, demonstrating not only her skills but also her understanding of loyalty and responsibility. She spoke of survival, of observing and learning from the world around her, and of the necessity of standing firm when others faltered. Finally, the eldest of the council, a woman with a presence that commanded attention, leaned forward. Very well. You may stay. But know this, the Silverfang pack does not take outsiders lightly. You will be tested, Arya, and your allegiance must prove unwavering. I understand, Arya said simply. Kale observed the exchange silently, his respect for her deepening. He had inherited expectations and duties, but he had not expected to encounter someone who could challenge him, guide him, and act as a stabilizing force in the midst of the pack's politics. After the council meeting, Kale led Arya to the training grounds. The morning sun had warmed the stone paths, and the air was filled with the clatter of weapons and the calls of warriors practicing formations. You will need to earn the trust of the pack, Kale said, gesturing toward the open space. It is not enough for me to trust you. They must see that your presence strengthens us, not threatens us. Arya nodded, her eyes scanning the area. She could already identify weaknesses, patterns, and opportunities. I will, she replied. But I do not need their approval to act when danger approaches. That is your right as Alpha and mine as your protector. Kale studied her carefully. There was no arrogance in her words, only certainty and determination. Good. Then we begin. The training was rigorous. Arya moved with fluidity and precision, demonstrating skills that went beyond combat, tracking, situational awareness, and tactical decision-making. Younger warriors watched, initially skeptical, but soon impressed by her capability and focus. Kale remained close, observing her every move, occasionally interjecting advice or adjustments. Their synergy was apparent, a silent language formed through shared purpose and understanding. As the day progressed, Arya found herself navigating the subtle tensions within the pack. Some warriors respected her immediately, recognizing her skill and composure. Others questioned her motives, whispering doubts and testing her patience. She remained unshaken, knowing that trust could only be earned, never demanded. During a brief pause in training, Kale approached her. You move like the wind, he said quietly, and yet you are deliberate, measured. You think faster than most of my warriors, and yet you remain calm. Arya held up a hand. Do not speak of me as if I am extraordinary. I do what is necessary. That is all. The rest is irrelevant. Kale's eyes met hers, searching, as though attempting to understand the unyielding nature of her spirit. You are extraordinary, he said softly, though he did not press the point further. Evening fell, and the sky was streaked with fiery shades of orange and red. Arya sat by the edge of the training grounds, sharpening her dagger and reviewing the events of the day. Her mind wandered briefly to the night before, the scouts, the cliff, the moment when she had risked herself for Kale. It was not bravery that drove her, but instinct and necessity. Yet she could not deny a sense of connection forming, subtle and unspoken, rooted in trust and mutual reliance. Kale joined her without a word, standing a respectful distance away. He did not speak immediately, allowing the silence to stretch comfortably between them. Finn. Ally, he said, you will have to be patient. Not everyone here will accept you, and not everything about this life will be easy. Arya glanced at him, her eyes steady. I have faced far worse than the skepticism of a pack. Let them test me. I will endure. Kale nodded, silently approving. Good. That is what a protector must be. Not just skill, but endurance, clarity, and steadfastness. I see that in you already. Night settled fully over the stronghold, and the stars appeared in a clear sky. Arya felt the weight of her decision pressing on her, a choice between the solitude she had always known and a future bound to another's fate. Yet in that weight, she also felt a strange clarity. She had survived alone for years, but perhaps this time, survival was not enough. Perhaps her purpose was greater than self-preservation. It was to protect, to guide, and to stand firm against the darkness threatening the Silverfang pack. As she lay in her assigned quarters that night, Arya thought of the oath she had taken, though it was unspoken. She would protect Kale, not out of obligation, but because it was right. And in doing so, she would find a path that demanded courage, wisdom, and unwavering resolve. Outside, the forest stirred once more, carrying whispers of distant threats and unseen dangers. Arya's eyes closed, but her mind remained alert. She was no longer simply a wanderer in the wilds. She was a sentinel, a protector, a force to be reckoned with. And the Silverfang pack, whether they understood it yet or not, had just gained someone who would not falter, not in the face of enemies, not in the face of doubt, and not in the trials to come. Tomorrow, she would prove herself further. Tomorrow, she would step fully into the world she had only observed from the shadows. And tomorrow, the Silverfangs would begin to understand the strength and resolve of the woman who had chosen to stand with their alpha, not because she had to, but because she willed it. The Protector's oath was silent, unspoken to all but herself and Kale. But in that quiet commitment, a bond had already begun, one that would shape the destiny of the pack, and test them both in ways neither could yet imagine. Morning fog clung to the edges of the Silverfang stronghold like a curtain, shrouding the training grounds in a soft gray haze. Arya adjusted the leather straps across her chest and flexed her fingers, feeling the familiar weight of her dagger. Today was different. The council had set forth a trial, a ritual to test her courage, loyalty, and suitability to serve as protector to Kale. Though Arya had faced countless dangers in the wilds, the challenge before her would demand more than strength and skill. It would require judgment, trust, and endurance under scrutiny. Kale met her at the altar. Ants to the ceremonial grounds, his expression calm but serious. "The trial is not just for you," he said. "It is for the pack to see that your presence strengthens us, that you can think and act under pressure, and that you will stand unwavering in the face of threats." Arya inclined her head, the rising sun glinting off the edge of her dagger. "I understand. Let them watch. I do not act for approval." "Good," Kale replied. "Then let us begin." The ceremonial ground was a large clearing, surrounded by towering stone pillars etched with the history of Silverfang leaders. Smoke rose from ceremonial fires, curling in intricate patterns as if tracing the spirits of ancestors observing the trial. Warriors lined the perimeter, their faces a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. Some whispered doubts, others observed silently, waiting to see how the newcomer would fare. The council elder, a stoic figure draped in ceremonial robes, stepped forward. "Arya," she said, her voice carrying over the clearing, "you will face 3 challenges today. Each is designed to test your skill, judgment, and loyalty. Succeed, and you will earn the trust of the Silverfang pack. Fail, and you may leave with your life, but without honor." Arya's jaw tightened. Honor had always been her compass. "I accept the trial," she said, her voice unwavering. The first challenge was one of endurance. Arya was led to a cliff face overlooking a deep chasm, the wind howling through the crevices as though testing her resolve. Her task was simple in description but deadly in execution. Traverse the rocky face to retrieve a ceremonial token, a small carved stone, and return without faltering. Arya's heart did not race. Fear was a tool she had long mastered. She assessed the ledges, the wind's pattern, the fragility of stones underfoot. One misstep could mean a fall into the abyss, yet she moved with precision, testing each hold, gauging each step. The council observed silently, their scrutiny sharp, but Arya did not falter. She scaled the cliff with the grace of someone who had spent years surviving in the wild, each movement deliberate and controlled. When she reached the token, a small emblem of the Silverfang wolf etched in ivory, a cheer erupted from some of the younger warriors. The elders remained silent, as if measuring not the success itself, but the manner in which it had been achieved. The second challenge was of strategy. A mock ambush had been set up in the forest beyond the stronghold. Kale would act as the target, and Arya's task was to navigate the terrain, anticipate threats, and guide him safely through without letting the council see a single failure. Arya's mind clicked into rhythm, analyzing the positions of hidden adversaries, calculating angles, and determining the optimal path. She and Kale moved as one, communicating silently through gestures and brief nods. Each step was calculated, each decision executed with precision. Shadows of the enemies flitted among the trees, but Arya anticipated each movement, guiding Kale past every danger. At one point, Kale stumbled near a root, and instinctively, Arya reached out. Not to touch him, but to signal him with a shift of stance and a sharp glance. He recovered, silently acknowledging her guidance. In that moment, their bond deepened, not through words, but through the shared understanding that they could rely on each other. The council observed keenly. Some of the elders leaned forward, eyebrows raised, noting her keen observation and swift decision-making. It was clear to them that this was no ordinary warrior. This was someone who could think under pressure, anticipate danger, and act with unwavering focus. The third challenge was the most subtle: judgment. Arya was presented with a moral dilemma designed to test her loyalty and discernment. Two paths lay before her, one safe, the other fraught with risk but with potential to save lives. A small group of younger pack members, acting as captives in the trial, depended on her decision. Arya surveyed the situation, noting the position of her allies, the weaknesses of the terrain, and the psychological impact of her choice. Many would choose the safe path, preserving personal safety and reputation. But Arya knew that true protection required sacrifice, even if only in principle. Her choice was deliberate. She led Kale and the captives along the more dangerous path, anticipating every obstacle, predicting every threat. The path was treacherous, with loose stones and hidden pitfalls, but she navigated it flawlessly. When they emerged on the other side, the pack members safe and unscathed, the silence of the council was broken by murmurs of admiration. Kale looked at her, eyes bright with acknowledgement. "You were remarkable," he said quietly, though there was no hint of exaggeration in his tone. "I would trust my life to you anywhere." Arya's gaze met his, steady and unwavering. "I trust that you will make the right choices too. Leadership is not about avoiding danger, it's about guiding others through it." The council rose, their expressions a mixture of approval and respect. The eldest spoke once more. "Arya, you have demonstrated skill, judgment, and loyalty beyond expectation. The Silverfang pack recognizes your merit. You have earned their trust and, more importantly, you have earned the trust of your alpha." Arya nodded, but she felt no pride, only resolve. Trust was earned continuously, the trial was only the beginning. She understood that challenges far greater than a ceremonial test awaited. The Ironfangs were still large, and unseen threats lingered in the shadows of Silverfang territory. Later, Kale led her to the edge of the forest, where the rising sun painted the landscape in gold. "Today," he said, "you have proven yourself, not just to the pack, but to me. I know you will face many more trials, and I do not doubt you will rise to each one." Arya considered his words, recognizing the weight they carried. Kale's acknowledgement was not casual. It was a quiet affirmation of partnership, trust, and the understanding that their fates were intertwined. "I will rise," she said. "But only because it is necessary. Not for praise, not for approval. Survival, protection, and honor, those are what guide me." Kale's eyes lingered on hers, reading the depth of her conviction. He understood that Arya's loyalty was not given lightly, nor would it be swayed by flattery or command. She was steadfast, independent, and unyielding, qualities that would shape the Silverfang pack's future as much as any leadership decree. The day's trials concluded with a quiet ceremony. Arya remained unadorned, her clothing and armor simple, her dagger at her side. Yet the pack's warriors could not ignore the truth. She was one of them now, not by birth, but by merit. Whispers of respect followed her as she walked through the training grounds, and Kale walked beside her, silent acknowledgement passing between them. That night, as the stronghold settled into the deep quiet of darkness, Arya stood atop a stone tower, gazing at the moonlit forest beyond. The wind tugged at her hair, carrying with it the scent of pine, earth, and distant smoke. The Ironfang scouts had not yet returned, but their presence was a lingering shadow in her thoughts. Kale approached quietly, standing at a measured distance. "You will face more than trials of skill," he said. You will face trials of loyalty, of choice, and of destiny. Are you ready for that? Arya's gaze did not waver. I am ready for whatever comes. I am not here for recognition, nor for comfort. I am here to protect, to endure, and to act when others cannot. That is my path. Chaol studied her, the first hint of a smile tugging at the corner of his lips. Then I am fortunate to have you by my side. Arya nodded, but her attention remained on the forest, alert to any sign of movement, any threat on the horizon. The bond between them was solidifying, not through words of affection, but through trust, respect, and the unspoken understanding that they would face every challenge together. As the night deepened and stars shimmered overhead, Arya felt a rare clarity. Trials would continue, dangers would rise, and the Silverfang pack would demand everything of her. Yet she welcomed it all. She was not alone, not anymore, and in that alliance lay strength far greater than any she had known in the wild. The Protector's oath had been silently renewed through action, not declaration. And as Arya descended the tower to join Chaol, she understood that this was only the beginning, the first of many trials that would define not just her path, but the destiny of the Silverfang pack. The night was alive with the soft murmur of the forest, a gentle symphony of leaves brushing against one another, distant animal calls, and the occasional ripple of wind across the treetops. The Silverfang stronghold lay below, its torches flickering like fireflies against the stone walls. Arya moved silently along a narrow ridge, her eyes adjusting to the silver light of the moon, each step precise and deliberate. Chaol followed a few paces behind, his hands resting loosely at his sides, his posture alert but relaxed. They had been patrolling the outer boundary of the territory, a routine that had become almost ceremonial in the days since the trials. But tonight, a subtle tension clung to the air, an undercurrent that neither of them could ignore. You've grown accustomed to the pack quickly, Chaol said quietly, his voice carrying over the soft rustle of the night. The warriors have begun to respect you, even those who doubted you most. Arya didn't glance back. Respect is earned, not given. Their judgment doesn't concern me. My duty is to protect, not to be praised. Chaol nodded, his gaze lingering on her profile. And yet, you've earned both. Arya's lips pressed into a thin line. She had learned long ago that words of admiration were often empty, and while Chaol's praise was sincere, it carried weight she could not yet fully accept. Her focus was the task at hand, vigilance, observation, and the silent promise she had made to herself. As they reached a clearing bathed in moonlight, the forest seemed to grow quieter, as if holding its breath. Arya's instincts prickled, a subtle signal that something beyond the ordinary lurked nearby. She crouched, moving closer to the edge of the clearing, and Chaol followed without hesitation. At the center of the clearing, a stone circle half buried in moss glimmered faintly under the moon's glow. Ancient runes etched along its surface pulsed with a soft light, a rhythm that seemed almost alive. Arya recognized the symbols immediately. They were old, predating the Silverfang pack itself, remnants of a forgotten era when prophecy shaped the fates of clans. Chaol stepped forward cautiously. I've seen this before in the council archives, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The elders speak of it in hushed tones, a circle that reveals truths to those it deems worthy. Arya's eyes narrowed as she studied the runes. And you think it will show us something? Chaol hesitated, running a hand over the smooth stone. Perhaps. There are stories, legends of a Luna who will guide the Alpha, whose presence ensures the strength and survival of the pack. Some believe the circle appears only to those who are part of that destiny. Arya felt a flicker of unease, but she did not speak immediately. Destiny was a word she had avoided all her life. Her survival had been shaped by skill, instinct, and self-reliance, not by prophecy or fate. Yet the circle's subtle glow seemed to pull at something deep within her, something she could not name. Chaol met her gaze, his eyes searching. Arya, I do not know if the stories are true. But I do know this, without you, I would not have survived the scouts, nor could I have faced the trials today. There is a strength in you, something that aligns with the stories. Perhaps it is coincidence, perhaps something more. Arya's hand twitched toward the hilt of her dagger, though she did not draw it. I do not chase legends, she said firmly. I act. That is all I have ever known. Chaol inclined his head, understanding her resolve. Then act. But do not ignore what is before us." With a deep breath, Arya stepped into the stone circle. The runes pulsed brighter, and the air seemed to hum with energy. She felt a strange warmth, almost like a heartbeat, rising through her body. The forest around them seemed to fade, replaced by a vision that unfolded in the silver light. She saw the Silverfang pack, not as it was now, but as it could be, thriving, united, yet constantly threatened by the Ironfangs and other unseen enemies. At the center of this vision, Kale stood tall, commanding respect, but his strength alone was not enough. Beside him, a figure moved with precision, courage, and insight, Arya herself, guiding, protecting, ensuring survival. The vision shifted, showing moments she had already lived, the scouts on the ridge, the trials, the moral choice in the forest, and then glimpses of events she had not yet faced, battles, ambushes, and moments where Kale would need her guidance more than ever. The runes pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat, as though affirming the connection between her and the Alpha Heir. When she stepped back from the circle, the light dimmed, and the forest returned to its quiet state. Kale looked at her intently, a mixture of awe and understanding in his expression. "You saw it too, didn't you?" he asked softly. Arya shook her head. "No. I don't know what that was. A vision? A warning? Perhaps just the effects of old magic. But there is truth in it. I know my presence here matters. More than I thought." Kale took a step closer, but maintained a respectful distance. "Arya, the council may not fully understand it yet, and the pack certainly doesn't. But I do. You are not just a protector. You may be the Luna they speak of, the one who ensures that the Alpha can fulfill his role, that the pack survives every trial." The words sent a ripple through her, but she did not falter. Destiny was not a comfort, nor a responsibility she sought. Yet she could not deny that her path had led her here, to Kale, to the Silverfang pack, and to this moment of recognition. "Then I will continue," she said quietly, "not because of prophecy, but because it is necessary. Because it is right. Because without me, others will suffer. That is enough." Kale studied her silently, a sense of admiration deepening in his gaze. "Enough," he echoed. "And it will be more than enough. For the pack, for me, and for what lies ahead." The forest seemed to settle around them, as though acknowledging the unspoken bond between them. Shadows shifted beneath the moonlight, carrying whispers of distant threats, the Ironfang scouts, the murmurs of dissenters within the Silverfang pack, and challenges that neither could yet foresee. "Do you ever wonder," Kale said after a long pause, "if fate chooses us, or if we choose our own paths?" Arya's eyes reflected the moonlight, steady and unwavering. "I know this," she said. "I choose to act where it matters. Fate may guide, but I decide. And I have decided, Kale's survival, and the strength of this pack, depend on me. I will not fail." Kale nodded, the wind stirring his silver hair. "Then we are aligned, you and I, together. Not by prophecy, not by choice alone, but by purpose. And purpose is a bond stronger than any legend." For hours, they patrolled the perimeter, moving in silence, alert to every sound, every shadow, every sign of danger. The moon cast long silver beams across the forest floor, illuminating paths, revealing subtle movements in the underbrush, and guiding them through the night. Arya's senses remained attuned, her mind calculating, anticipating threats before they could manifest. Kale observed, learning from her expertise, his own instincts sharpened by her guidance. As dawn approached, the first rays of light breaking over the horizon, Arya and Kale returned to the stronghold. The vision in the stone circle lingered in her mind, a reminder that the future held challenges far beyond anything they had yet faced. And though she did not seek recognition or praise, she understood that her role, whatever it was called, whatever prophecy it tied her to, would shape not only the Silverfang pack's destiny, but their own intertwined fates. Arya did not speak of the vision to the council. She would not boast, nor would she reveal what she had seen. But in the quiet moments, when the world seemed to pause, she felt a subtle reassurance, a certainty that the bond she shared with Kale, forged through trust, courage, and unspoken understanding, would endure every trial to come. And somewhere in the shadows, unseen by all but her vigilant eyes, the first stirrings of the Ironfang threat re-emerged. Their spies were patient, relentless, and calculating. But Arya was ready. She had faced threats before, unseen and underestimated. Now, with Kale beside her, she would confront danger not alone, but as the sentinel, the protector, and perhaps, the Luna foretold by ancient prophecy. The night faded, the forest awoke, and the Silverfang pack continued to stir below, unaware of the silent currents shaping their future. Arya's resolve remained unshaken. She had accepted her role, not as legend, not as destiny, but as a choice she had made. And that choice would define everything. The Silverfang stronghold stirred with unusual tension as dawn broke over the horizon. Soldiers marched with practiced precision, but their steps were heavier than usual, eyes darting toward one another with suspicion. Rumors had begun to spread, whispered in corridors and training grounds, dissent, betrayal, and murmurs of the Ironfang clan exploiting old rivalries within the pack. Arya moved through the stronghold silently, her keen eyes observing the subtle shifts in demeanor, the nervous glances exchanged by warriors who should have been confident and unwavering. She had grown accustomed to reading the world for threats, but human, or wolf-blooded, politics carried a danger unlike any ambush in the wilds. One wrong move, one misstep, and the pack's internal cohesion could collapse. Kale joined her in the courtyard, his expression troubled but composed. "The council speaks of loyalty, yet I sense unrest," he said quietly. "Some whisper that my reliance on you is a sign of weakness. Others are more subtle. I cannot tell who can be trusted." Arya studied him for a moment. "Trust is earned, even within a pack. You must observe, as you do with enemies outside our borders. Internal threats are no less dangerous than those beyond our walls. Let me help." Kale inclined his head. "Then I will follow your counsel, as always. But the council, my elders, they may see your intervention as overreach." Arya's eyes narrowed. "Let them. I am here to protect, not to seek approval." They moved through the halls, their presence commanding but unobtrusive. Arya's attention was drawn to the youngest scouts, whispering among themselves, glancing toward Kale and then quickly looking away. Her instincts pricked. Something was amiss. Later, in the council chamber, Kale convened a meeting to address the rumors. Arya observed from the sidelines, noting subtle shifts in posture, the micro-expressions of those seated. The council elders were wary, their eyes flickering between Kale and her. Some suspicion lingered, subtle but palpable. An elder with a hawkish face leaned forward. "Alpha Kale, are you certain it is wise to rely so heavily on an outsider? The Silverfangs have endured generations of leadership without such influence." Kale's jaw tightened. "Her guidance has saved lives, ensured my survival, and strengthened our decisions. That is wisdom, elder, not influence. I will not apologize for valuing skill over tradition." A murmur ran through the chamber. Some nodded in agreement, others shifted uneasily in their seats. The dissenters were clever, they framed respect for Arya as a threat to tradition. Arya stepped forward, her voice calm and firm. "I am not here to threaten the Silverfangs. I am here to protect them, to act when danger comes, and to ensure the survival of the pack. My loyalty lies with Kale because his strength and judgment guide us all. Do not mistake my presence for ambition, it is vigilance, not desire, that compels me." The room fell silent. The weight of her words, coupled with the quiet authority in her tone, seemed to force the council to reconsider. Kale's gaze met hers, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. She had not only defended herself but also strengthened his position. As the meeting concluded, Arya lingered, her mind already piecing together patterns she had observed over the past weeks. There were subtle alliances forming among the younger warriors, whispers exchanged in the barracks, and coded messages passed along the edges of the stronghold. Someone was feeding the Ironfangs information, though the source remained hidden. Later that evening, Arya moved through the shadows of the stronghold, following a faint trail of clues she had pieced together. Small tokens, marks etched into walls, and unusual shifts in guard rotations led her to a secluded corner of the compound. There, hidden behind a tapestry, she discovered a young scout attempting to transmit messages through a secret channel. Arya's presence was sudden and commanding, yet she did not startle the scout unnecessarily. "Step away from the post," she said. "Now." The scout froze, eyes wide. I wasn't, you were betraying the Silverfang pack," Arya interrupted sharply. "And you will answer for it." The scout hesitated, then dropped the concealed scrolls, surrendering without a fight. Arya inspected the messages quickly, coded coordinates, troop movements, and reports meant for the Ironfang clan. The betrayal was deeper than she had suspected. Kale arrived silently, as though he had sensed the disturbance. His expression was grave, but he allowed Arya to take control. "What did you find?" he asked quietly. "Evidence of internal sabotage," Arya replied. "This scout is passing information to the Ironfangs. There may be others. The pack is not as united as it appears." Kale's eyes narrowed. "Then we must act carefully. Exposure too soon could destabilize the pack further. We need a strategy." Arya nodded. "We must turn this to our advantage. Let the dissenters reveal themselves. Observe their actions, predict their moves, and then respond decisively. The Ironfangs will not be the only ones caught unprepared." Over the next days, Arya and Kale worked in tandem. They monitored movements, intercepted messages, and subtly influenced troop rotations to test loyalty without alerting the entire pack. The young scout, under Arya's watchful eye, revealed more about his contacts, other minor traitors, secret meetings, and potential points of weakness. Through it all, Kale learned the nuances of leadership beyond what any council had taught him. He saw the value of discretion, the necessity of observation, and the quiet authority that Arya wielded, not through intimidation, but through skill, insight, and presence. Late one night, they met again in the moonlit courtyard. Arya's eyes scanned the horizon, ever alert to the unseen threats. Kale approached, his tone subdued. "You have changed the way I see leadership. I underestimated the necessity of vigilance within. I see now that survival is not only about defending borders, but about knowing who to trust inside our walls." Arya studied him, her expression calm. Leadership is not about authority alone. It is about understanding, predicting, and acting when others cannot. That is why I serve. Not to control, not to dominate, but to ensure that the right choices are made at the right time. Kale's gaze softened slightly, though he did not smile. "Then I am fortunate to have you." Arya's eyes returned to the shadowed edges of the courtyard. Fortune does not protect a pack. Preparedness does. And the Ironfangs are patient predators. They will strike when the moment is right. So we must be ready, always. The days that followed were tense. The dissenters became bolder, emboldened by whispers of support from unseen allies. Arya anticipated their moves, subtly redirecting their efforts while maintaining the appearance of normality. Kale followed her guidance, gradually earning the respect of the council and the pack without revealing the full extent of their coordinated efforts. Then, one evening, a warning arrived from the scouts. Ironfang forces were moving closer to the border, preparing for an incursion. The dissenters within the pack had provided them with partial information, hoping to weaken the Silverfangs before the conflict began. Arya and Kale convened the council, presenting a plan that would protect the pack and expose the traitors simultaneously. It required precision, timing, and absolute trust between the two of them. Kale outlined the strategy, while Arya executed the intelligence gathering and covert operation. The plan unfolded flawlessly. The Ironfang advance was thwarted, and the internal traitors revealed themselves for all to see. The Silverfang pack witnessed not only the defeat of the external threat but also the competence and loyalty of Arya. Even the most skeptical council members could not deny her skill and the strength of her partnership with Kale. Later, as the night settled over the stronghold once more, Kale and Arya stood on the outer wall, gazing at the horizon. The threat had been neutralized, for now, but the whispers of rebellion had left their mark. Arya's vigilance had proven invaluable, and Kale's leadership had been tested in ways he had not anticipated. "You did well," Kale said, his voice quiet but steady. "The pack is stronger because of your actions, and I have learned much from you." Arya's gaze remained fixed on the distant tree line. "The pack will always face threats, both within and without. My work is not done. But for now, we are prepared, and that is enough." Kale nodded, understanding the unspoken bond that had formed between them, not of romance, but of respect, loyalty, and shared purpose. The Silverfang pack had survived the first major test of internal and external threats, and the night's shadows promised that many more challenges would come. But Arya was ready, always ready, and Kale knew, as he watched her silhouette against the moonlit horizon, that the strength of the pack's future rested not just on his shoulders, but on the unwavering resolve of the woman who had chosen to stand by his side. The whispers of rebellion had been silenced, at least for now. But the Silverfang pack, and the bond between its alpha and his protector, would face greater trials before the full scope of destiny revealed itself. The morning air was crisp and carried a hint of frost as Arya and Kale rode through the forest toward the ceremonial grounds where the clans would convene. The trial of the clans was a long-standing Silverfang tradition, a test designed to strengthen alliances, evaluate leadership, and ensure that disputes were resolved through skill and wisdom rather than open conflict. This year, the stakes were higher. The Ironfang scouts had been repelled, yet their presence lingered like a shadow, and the political tension among neighboring clans was at an unusual peak. Arya rode alongside Kale, her eyes scanning the perimeter for threats while her mind processed potential scenarios that could unfold during the trial. "The clans will watch our every move," Kale said quietly, his hand lightly brushing the reins of his horse. "Our performance here is not just for tradition, it is a message. Strength, unity, and vigilance." Arya's gaze was sharp. "And every clan will seek weakness. They will probe, test, and challenge. It is not enough to participate. We must dominate without showing arrogance." The ceremonial grounds were a vast open valley encircled by cliffs, their faces etched with centuries of history and murals depicting legendary warriors of the Silverfang lineage. Clans from far and near had gathered, their banners fluttering in the wind. The air was electric with anticipation, murmurs of rivalries, and the occasional clash of armored soldiers practicing maneuvers. Arya dismounted quietly, her boots barely making a sound on the frost-covered ground. Kale followed, scanning the assembly. He had grown confident in her presence, her calm, methodical approach to observation and strategy had sharpened his own instincts. The elders of the Silverfang pack stepped forward, their ceremonial robes rustling in the morning breeze. "Welcome, warriors of allied clans," the eldest proclaimed. "Today, we gather not merely to compete, but to demonstrate unity, courage, and honor. Let the trial of the clans begin." The trial consisted of multiple stages, each testing different aspects of leadership, strength, and strategy. The first stage was the arena of skill, where warriors demonstrated their prowess in combat, agility, and coordination. Arya observed the layout, a large stone arena, dotted with obstacles, elevated platforms, and training dummies designed to simulate combat scenarios. Kale turned to her. "I will compete alongside you, but the focus is on leadership. Show them the value of a protector, not just a warrior." Arya inclined her head. "Understood. Observation, anticipation, guidance, these are the tools that will prove our worth." As the trial commenced, warriors from each clan stepped into the arena. Swords clashed, arrows whistled through the air, and the sound of exertion filled the valley. When Kale and Arya entered, the spectators noticed the synergy immediately. Arya moved with precision, anticipating threats, positioning Kale, and guiding him subtly with gestures and shifts in stance. An ambush scenario was introduced mid-trial. Hidden projectiles, simulated enemies appearing from multiple directions. Arya's instincts proved invaluable. She directed Kale and the Silverfang contingent flawlessly, neutralizing the threats and maintaining control of the arena. The murmurs of the audience grew into whispers of awe. The second stage, the Labyrinth of Judgment, tested wisdom and decision-making. Each clan was presented with a complex maze filled with traps, obstacles, and moral choices that could impact innocent captives represented by training figures. Arya's mind worked quickly. She noted patterns in the traps, assessed which choices minimized risk while achieving the goal, and led Kale and their team through with careful precision. One wrong decision would have led to failure, but Arya's calm assessment and foresight guided them to success. The spectators were impressed not by brute strength, but by strategy, collaboration, and judgment under pressure. Kale observed silently, learning the importance of integrating insight with leadership, how the presence of a protector could amplify his effectiveness without overshadowing his role as alpha. The final stage, the Trial of Unity, was a test of coordination among clans. Each team had to achieve a common goal, lifting a massive ceremonial stone, navigating through treacherous terrain, and reaching the summit of a cliff, while maintaining cohesion. Arya and Kale led the Silverfang contingent, their commands precise, their timing flawless. She coordinated movements, advised on the safest routes, and prevented mistakes before they occurred. Kale trusted her implicitly, following her guidance while making key leadership decisions to ensure morale and authority were maintained. The cliffs loomed overhead as the team ascended, the wind whipping against their faces. Rival clans attempted interference, subtle sabotage, and misdirection. Arya anticipated these maneuvers, adjusting tactics and instructing Kale in subtle ways that allowed the Silverfangs to maintain progress while minimizing confrontation. As they reached the summit, the ceremonial stone in hand, the assembly erupted in applause. The Silverfang pack had not only completed the trial but had done so with skill, unity, and ingenuity. Observers from allied clans approached Kale and Arya, offering nods of respect and acknowledgement. Kale turned to Arya once they were alone, a rare expression of pride on his face. Today, you proved that protection is more than defense, it is foresight, strategy, and courage. The clans will remember this. Arya shook her head, her expression calm. I did what was necessary. That is all. Recognition is irrelevant. Kale smiled faintly. It is inevitable. Others will see what I see. And soon, the Silverfangs will follow. Your place here is solidified, Arya. The trial concluded with a ceremonial feast. Clans celebrated, exchanged words of diplomacy, and acknowledged the prowess of the Silverfang warriors. Yet even in celebration, Arya's eyes remained vigilant, scanning the perimeter, sensing movements and shifts that others overlooked. Later, as the moon rose over the valley, Kale and Arya stood near the edge of the ceremonial grounds, the soft glow illuminating the frost-covered terrain. We have allies now, Kale said, but also enemies. The Ironfangs are patient, they will wait for weakness. Arya's gaze did not waver. Weakness is something I do not allow. And neither should you. The pack is strong today because of foresight, vigilance, and action. Tomorrow, we ensure that strength continues and that no internal dissent can threaten what we've built. Kale nodded. Then we prepare. For every trial, every challenge, every threat. Together. Arya's hand rested lightly on her dagger, eyes scanning the darkened valley. Together, she repeated, but always aware. The trial of the clans has ended, but the real test is yet to come. The Ironfangs and those who would see our pack divided will strike when the moment is right. We must be ready. The night deepened, the stars glimmered above, and the Silverfang stronghold settled into quiet vigilance. Arya and Kale's bond, forged in trust, skill, and unspoken understanding, had been strengthened by the trial. And as they looked over the valley, both knew that the next challenges would demand even greater courage, insight, and unity than they had ever faced. The trial of the clans had ended, but the war for the Silverfang's future was only beginning. And at the center of it all stood Arya, protector, strategist, sentinel, and perhaps the key to the Alpha's destiny. The early morning fog clung to the forest like a shroud, masking every tree and underbrush in muted silver. Arya moved silently along a narrow ridge overlooking the valley below, her dagger sheathed but her senses fully alert. The Ironfang clan had not yet revealed the full extent of their strength, but intelligence from scouts indicated that a strike was imminent. Kale followed behind, his posture taut, eyes scanning the shadows. They are patient, he said quietly, his voice barely above the whisper of the wind. They wait for the moment when we are distracted, when our defenses are weakest. Arya didn't respond immediately. Her mind was calculating, tracking patterns, predicting movements, assessing terrain advantages. She had learned long ago that the most dangerous adversaries were not always those visible, but those who struck unseen, guided by cunning rather than brute force. They've grown bolder, Arya finally said, her tone calm but sharp. The scouts report smaller incursions along the eastern ridge. They are probing our defenses. Testing our vigilance. This is not preparation, it is harassment. Kale's jaw tightened. Then we give them an answer they will not forget. But carefully. We cannot allow their provocations to fracture the pack. Every response must be precise, decisive, and controlled. Arya inclined her head, already moving toward a vantage point. Let me survey the area. I can anticipate their moves before they reach the main perimeter. The forest below was dense, shadows twisting and blending with the fog. Arya spotted faint disturbances, broken twigs, shifted leaves, faint footprints, that suggested a small party of Ironfang warriors moving toward a minor outpost. She traced their path mentally, calculating timing and the likelihood of reinforcements. They'll split into 3 groups, she said, pointing. One will feint here, another will push the outpost, and the third will attempt to circle around to the supply lines. They expect us to react emotionally, to rush in and reveal our weaknesses. But we will not. Kale nodded, impressed by her precision. We set traps, isolate them, and neutralize the threat without exposing the pack. Lead the way. The plan unfolded with meticulous execution. Arya guided scouts along hidden paths, positioned ambushes in natural choke points, and used the terrain to the Silverfang's advantage. When the Ironfang's first party advanced, they were met with unseen defenses, pits concealed beneath foliage, rigged branches that tipped unsuspecting intruders into shallow traps, and strategically placed alarms that alerted Kale and the main force. The battle was not of brute force, but of strategy. Arya moved like a shadow among the trees, her instructions whispered through hand signals and subtle cues. Kale followed, making decisive calls that leveraged her guidance, ensuring no Silverfang soldier was caught off guard. The second Ironfang group attempted a direct push toward the outpost, only to encounter a coordinated counter. Arya's foresight allowed the Silverfangs to flank the intruders, guiding Kale's forces with silent precision. The enemy faltered, disoriented by the unexpected strategy, and retreated under the cover of the trees. Yet the third group remained elusive. Arya had anticipated their attempt to strike at the supply lines, but this required patience and timing. She moved ahead, tracking subtle signs, a snapped branch, a displaced rock, the faint scent of campfire smoke, to predict their path. This way, she whispered to Kale, leading him to a narrow pass where the Ironfang warriors were attempting to slip through undetected. We trap them without direct confrontation. Let them believe they have the advantage, then seal their escape. Kale's eyes narrowed, admiration mingling with determination. Precision over force. I trust your judgment. Arya positioned the Silverfang warriors strategically, creating a silent blockade that the Ironfangs would stumble into. When the enemy reached the narrow pass, they found themselves enclosed, their path cut off by the coordinated positioning of Arya's forces. Panic flared among the intruders, and without a single life lost, the Silverfangs captured the entire party. Kale approached Arya, his expression a mixture of respect and relief. You anticipated everything. Every movement, every decision. Without you, we might have suffered losses we couldn't afford. Arya shook her head. Losses are always possible. But preparation, observation, and anticipation minimize risk. That is all I can offer. The captured Ironfang warriors were escorted to the stronghold, interrogated for intelligence. Arya and Kale analyzed the reports, uncovering a larger plan, a coordinated attack on multiple fronts, designed to divide the Silverfang pack and exploit internal distrust. The Ironfangs had been watching, waiting for a moment when dissenters within the pack could provide advantage. Kale's expression darkened. Then the threat is greater than we anticipated. They know about the dissenters. They have been manipulating them. This is no longer just a border incursion. It is a psychological war. Arya's mind worked through possible responses. We must act quickly, decisively, and with subtlety. The Ironfangs rely on division. We must reinforce unity within the pack and expose any remaining traitors before they can provide further intelligence. Over the next days, Arya and Kale implemented measures to strengthen internal security. Guards were reassigned, secret communications were monitored, and subtle loyalty tests were conducted. The pack began to coalesce, guided by Kale's leadership and Arya's strategic insight. Slowly, the internal fractures were repaired, the murmurs of dissent quelled, and confidence restored. Yet the shadow of the Ironfang threat lingered. Arya knew that this initial probe was only the beginning. Their patience, cunning, and relentless pursuit of advantage meant that every future move had to be anticipated, every weakness fortified. One night, as Arya patrolled the perimeter under the silver glow of the moon, Kale joined her. You have strengthened the pack and preserved its unity, he said quietly. But how long before they strike again? How long before another shadow appears? Arya's eyes scanned the treeline, sharp and vigilant. Shadows are always present, but awareness, preparation, and decisive action ensure they do not overwhelm us. They will come. We will be ready. Kale studied her, seeing the quiet determination in her stance, the unwavering focus in her eyes. You have become indispensable, Arya. Not because of prophecy, not because of duty, but because of skill, judgment, and courage. Arya shook her head slightly, her gaze returning to the dark forest. Indispensable or not, the work continues. We cannot afford complacency. The Iron Fangs will strike again, and when they do, the Silverfang pack must be unyielding. For hours, they patrolled in silence, listening to the night, observing movements in the shadows, and anticipating the enemy's next step. The bond between Kale and Arya had solidified, not through affection, but through trust, respect, and shared purpose. They understood each other's strengths, relied on each other's insight, and acted with a unity that no external threat could easily disrupt. The first whisper of dawn painted the horizon in hues of gold and silver. Arya and Kale returned to the stronghold, ready to brief the council and implement the next phase of their strategy. The Ironfangs had revealed their presence, but the battle was far from over. Each incursion, each maneuver, was a test of vigilance, strategy, and leadership. As they entered the council chamber, Arya's sharp eyes caught every subtle reaction, the tension, the curiosity, the quiet admiration that some could no longer hide. Kale addressed the elders, outlining the intelligence gathered and the steps taken to fortify the pack. Arya's observations supplemented his report, providing insight into both the external threat and internal vulnerabilities. The council listened, some nodding in approval, others quietly reassessing their own judgments. The Silverfang pack had survived the initial strike, but the war for dominance, security, and survival was only beginning. Later, Arya stood atop a stone tower, watching the horizon where the Ironfang forces might gather. The wind carried the scent of pine, earth, and distant smoke, the reminder of unseen threats lurking beyond the safety of the stronghold. She felt the familiar weight of responsibility settle across her shoulders, tempered by determination. Kale joined her without a sound. "You are tireless," he remarked quietly. "And unflinching. The pack owes much to you." Arya's gaze did not waver from the horizon. "I do not seek acknowledgement. I act because it is necessary. Because without vigilance, the pack suffers. And the Ironfangs are patient predators. They will wait for weakness, and we will not provide it." Kale's hand hovered near hers, a silent acknowledgement of partnership, trust, and shared purpose. "Then we prepare. Together." Arya nodded, her eyes scanning the tree line one last time before turning back to the tower. Together. Always. The shadows of the Ironfang lingered, but for now, the Silverfang pack stood strong, guided by a bond forged through trials, vigilance, and unwavering determination. And Arya knew that whatever darkness came next, they would face it, not alone, but as one. The Silverfang stronghold was quiet, almost deceptively so, as dawn's first light spilled across its battlements. Inside, the walls were alive with subtle movement, guards performing their routines, apprentices sharpening blades, and warriors preparing for the day's drills. Yet beneath this calm, Arya sensed a tension, a hidden current she could not ignore. Kale had convened the morning council to review intelligence on the Ironfang threat, but Arya lingered in the shadows, her eyes scanning the corridors and chambers with a predator's precision. Something stirred in the stronghold's inner heart, and her instincts screamed that dang. Was not always outside the walls. She moved silently through the corridors, noting small irregularities, a door slightly ajar where it should have been locked, faint scratches near a storeroom, and shadows that shifted too deliberately. Her senses were attuned to every sound, every movement, every sign that could indicate an unseen threat. At the armory, she paused, noticing that a set of finely crafted weapons was missing. Not stolen by outsiders, she realized, but removed by someone within. Someone with knowledge of the stronghold's layout, its routines, and its weaknesses. Kale joined her shortly after, his expression sharp. "You've noticed," he said quietly. "I had hoped it was a false alarm." Arya's eyes never left the doorway. "It is not. Someone is undermining the pack from within. Perhaps aligned with the Ironfangs, perhaps driven by ambition. Either way, it must be addressed before they strike decisively." Kale's jaw tightened. Then we root them out. But carefully. Exposure too soon could cause panic, distrust, even mutiny. We need subtlety, precision, and evidence. Arya inclined her head. I will handle the investigation. You focus on maintaining order and preparing the guards. If panic spreads, the Ironfangs have already won without lifting a finger. They began a meticulous process, tracking unusual movements, questioning minor staff under Arya's guidance, and observing patterns of behavior. Every whisper, every hesitant glance, every deviation from routine was catalogued and assessed. Late in the evening, Arya discovered a secret passage behind a tapestry in the main hall. The hidden corridor led to the stronghold's inner chambers, a place where only the most trusted individuals were permitted. Faint traces of footprints, disturbed dust, and the scent of oil suggested recent use. This is it, Arya murmured. Someone has been moving through the heart of the stronghold undetected. They know the layout intimately, and they are coordinating with outsiders. Kale studied the passage. Then we follow carefully. No confrontation until we understand their purpose and identify allies. The last thing we need is a firefight in our own home. They proceeded silently, the passage winding beneath the stronghold, connecting chambers, supply rooms, and strategic points. The faint glow of torches illuminated shadows moving ahead, two figures meeting in hushed conversation, exchanging documents and whispered words. Arya recognized them immediately, junior officers with access to sensitive information. They were competent enough to be trusted, but ambition or coercion had led them astray. She signaled Kale, and together they observed without revealing their presence. The officers spoke in hushed tones about troop movements, patrol schedules, and plans for the next Ironfang strike. Their intent was clear: sabotage, betrayal, and weakening the Silverfang defenses from within. Kale's expression darkened. They cannot be allowed to act. But we cannot confront them openly without exposing the investigation and risking more dissent. Arya nodded. We isolate, monitor, and gather evidence. The moment we act, it must be conclusive. No room for error. Over the following days, Arya and Kale coordinated subtle countermeasures. Patrols were redirected to monitor hidden pathways, sensitive documents were encrypted, and the two rogue officers were kept under observation without their knowledge. Meanwhile, Arya trained select scouts in discreet surveillance techniques, creating a network of loyal eyes throughout the stronghold. Every movement was documented, every communication intercepted. The internal plot began to unravel under her careful watch. One evening, Kale found Arya atop the battlements, overlooking the stronghold and the surrounding forest. Her eyes were focused, scanning for threats both internal and external. You've transformed vigilance into an art, Kale said quietly, admiration in his tone. The Ironfangs will never anticipate how prepared we are. Arya's gaze did not waver. Preparation is survival. And survival is not just physical, it is knowledge, foresight, and awareness of the motives of those around you. One misstep internally is far more dangerous than any enemy at the gates. Kale joined her silently, his presence steadying. Then we act when the moment is right. We have patience and precision on our side. Arya turned slightly, her eyes sharp. And when we do act, there can be no ambiguity. The traitors must be confronted, their alliances exposed, and the pack reassured that no corruption will remain unchecked. Otherwise, we risk more than just a loss of morale. We risk the survival of the Silverfangs. The following night, the opportunity presented itself. The rogue officers attempted to access the stronghold's armory, intending to redistribute weapons in a way that would create confusion during the next Ironfang incursion. Arya and Kale intercepted them discreetly, using hidden guards to encircle the culprits without drawing attention. The confrontation was swift and decisive. The officers were detained, evidence of their betrayal uncovered, and their intentions documented for the council. Kale addressed the pack, reinforcing the importance of loyalty, vigilance, and unity, while Arya's guidance ensured that no panic or unrest spread. With the internal threat neutralized, Arya turned her attention to the looming Ironfang offensive. Intelligence indicated that the rival clan would attempt a coordinated strike soon, combining stealth, ambushes, and psychological pressure to exploit any weakness in the Silverfangs. Kale and Arya convened a strategic session with the council, devising defensive formations, patrol schedules, and contingency plans. Arya's insight into enemy tactics, combined with Kale's leadership, ensured that the Silverfangs were not only prepared for the external attack but also fortified against internal treachery. Days passed in tense vigilance, scouts reporting minor incursions and disturbances, while Arya continued to refine strategies, train loyalists, and anticipate enemy moves. The bond between her and Kale had deepened through shared purpose, trust, respect, and mutual understanding guiding every decision. Finally, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the first signs of the Ironfang advance appeared. Smoke rose faintly in the distance, the sound of distant horns carried through the valley, and the forest seemed to tense in anticipation. Kale placed a hand lightly on Arya's shoulder, a gesture of acknowledgement and partnership. The enemy approaches. Every preparation we've made, every observation, every measure, will now be tested. Arya's gaze was unflinching, her mind focused. We will meet them head-on. With foresight, strategy, and unity. The Silverfang pack will not falter, and the heart of the stronghold will remain secure. Together, they moved to the command center, overseeing the deployment of troops, coordinating defenses, and preparing the Silverfangs for the battle that loomed. Every trap, patrol, and formation reflected Arya's vigilance and Kale's leadership. As night fell fully over the stronghold, the shadows of the Ironfang gathered on the horizon, their presence a silent threat. Yet within the walls, the Silverfangs stood strong, united, and ready. Arya and Kale shared a brief nod, an unspoken understanding passing between them. They were more than protector and alpha, they were the living embodiment of strategy, foresight, and unwavering resolve. The heart of the stronghold had been tested, both from within and without. And as the first sounds of the Ironfang advance echoed through the valley, Arya knew that every lesson, every precaution, and every act of vigilance would determine not only the outcome of the coming battle but the survival of the Silverfang pack itself. The first light of dawn revealed a trembling horizon, wreathed in smoke and dust. From the ridge beyond the Silverfang stronghold, the Ironfang forces had gathered, ranks of warriors in blackened armor, banners marked with jagged teeth flapping violently in the wind, and war drums echoing like thunder across the valley. Arya stood atop the battlements, her eyes scanning the advancing enemy with unerring precision. Every footstep, every glint of metal, every subtle movement was catalogued in her mind. She could anticipate formatio ns, predict maneuvers, and calculate response strategies faster than the enemy could change course. Kale joined her silently, his silver hair catching the morning light, eyes sharp and unflinching. "They've come," he said quietly. "All of them. Every strike they can muster." Arya's gaze did not waver. "And we are ready. Every measure we've implemented, every trap, every patrol, every loyalist in place, it all leads to this moment. The Silverfang pack will not falter." The Ironfang war horn sounded, a low, vibrating roar that sent shivers through the forest. From below, waves of warriors began their march toward the gates, while smaller squads attempted to bypass the front lines, seeking hidden paths that could compromise the stronghold's defenses. Kale moved to the command center, gesturing for Arya to join him. "We coordinate from here. Every detail must be precise." Arya followed, her mind already calculating the optimal deployment. She directed scouts along concealed ridges, placing archers in positions that maximized coverage while minimizing exposure. Trap lines were armed with subtle mechanisms, pits hidden beneath branches, nets suspended to ensnare, and alchemical mixtures designed to hinder movement without lethal effect. The first clash occurred at the eastern gate, where Ironfang shock troops attempted to breach the main barrier. The Silverfang defenders met them with precision, their movements choreographed to funnel attackers into pre-prepared zones. Arya's guidance ensured that no defender was overextended, and Kale's presence maintained morale and authority. Smoke and dust filled the air, but Arya remained focused, moving between vantage points, communicating through subtle signals, and anticipating enemy maneuvers. "Flankers on the western ridge," she warned, pointing toward a narrow pass. "They aim to bypass the gate. Dispatch a squad discreetly, cut them off before they reach the supply line." Kale nodded, deploying the unit with strategic precision. Moments later, the Iron Fang flanking party found themselves trapped in a narrow gorge, unable to advance or retreat. They surrendered without bloodshed, their morale shattered by the efficiency of the Silverfang response. Meanwhile, the main Iron Fang force intensified its assault, battering the gates with siege engines and attempting coordinated attacks to divide the defenders. Arya's observation skills proved invaluable. She noticed the subtle cues that indicated timing, rotation, and weaknesses in the enemy formations. Wait for the second wave, she instructed Kale. When they overextend, push from the battlements. The momentum will be theirs, but we will use it against them. Kale executed the plan flawlessly. Archers rained arrows down at precise intervals, while hidden defenders emerge. From concealed positions, cutting off retreat paths. Chaos rippled through the Ironfang ranks, their meticulously planned assault unraveling before the Silverfang strategy. The battle was not one of sheer violence alone but of anticipation, foresight, and control. Arya moved like a shadow among the defenders, signaling, observing, and directing with surgical precision. Kale's voice carried commands that bolstered morale, maintaining cohesion under immense pressure. Hours passed, and the Ironfang forces began to falter. Their siege engines were neutralized, flanking parties captured, and morale eroded by continuous resistance. Arya noticed subtle signs of panic, commanders gesturing urgently, soldiers breaking formation, hesitation replacing precision. "This is the moment," she whispered to Kale. "Press carefully, decisively. End this before they reorganize." Kale nodded, signaling a coordinated push. The Silverfang forces advanced from multiple positions, closing in on the disorganized Ironfang ranks. The enemy, exhausted, disoriented, and unprepared for such disciplined resistance, began to surrender or retreat. By midday, the battlefield was largely cleared. The Silverfang pack had defended their stronghold without significant losses, their coordination, foresight, and training proving superior to the brute force of the Ironfang assault. Arya's strategic guidance had been pivotal. Her anticipation of enemy maneuvers, observation of patterns, and ability to direct defenses ensured victory with minimal bloodshed. Kale addressed the surviving Ironfang commanders, offering terms of surrender. "You have tested us," he said, his tone firm but controlled. "The Silverfang pack will not be broken by brute force. Withdraw now, and live to return to your lands. Any further aggression will be met with decisive consequence." The Ironfang leaders, defeated but alive, accepted the terms. Their banners were lowered, their forces withdrawn, and the valley fell silent once more. Arya descended from the battlements, her movements measured despite the adrenaline of battle. She found Kale surveying the aftermath, his expression a mixture of relief and pride. "You orchestrated this with precision," he said quietly. "Every move, every prediction, flawless." Arya shook her head. "It was not perfection. There are always variables. But we adapted, observed, and responded. That is enough. Survival is not about flawless execution, it is about resilience and foresight." Kale studied her for a moment, acknowledgement in his gaze. "The pack owes you more than words can express. You have proven not just your skill, but your unwavering dedication. Today, the Silverfang stands stronger because of you." Arya's eyes scanned the horizon, noting the distant movements of retreating Ironfa. "NGS. This victory is temporary. They will regroup, adapt, and strike again. But now, we know our strengths, and our weaknesses. Preparation, observation, and vigilance will be our greatest weapons." The Silverfang warriors returned to the stronghold, tending to the wounded, securing the gates, and reinforcing defenses. Kale and Arya coordinated efforts to ensure the pack's readiness for future conflicts. The battle had been won, but the war for dominance, security, and survival continued. Later, as dusk fell, Arya and Kale stood atop the battlements once more, surveying the valley that had been the site of conflict. The air was filled with the scent of smoke, earth, and victory. "You have changed the course of this battle," Kale said quietly, his voice carrying both respect and acknowledgement. "The pack would not have survived without your guidance." Arya's gaze remained fixed on the distant horizon. "Survival is not guaranteed. We have succeeded today, but vigilance must never waver. The Ironfangs are patient, they will strike when opportunity presents itself. And when they do, the Silverfang pack must be ready." Kale nodded, understanding the weight of her words. Then we remain ready. Together. Arya finally turned to him, her expression calm and resolute. Together. Always. The Silverfang stronghold, tested by betrayal and battle, stood resilient. The bond between Alpha and Protector had been solidified in the crucible of siege, forged through strategy, foresight, and unflinching dedication. And as night descended over the valley, Arya knew that the final challenges were yet to come, the culmination of trials that would determine the true fate of the Silverfang pack. The Silverfang stronghold was bathed in moonlight, its stone walls glowing silver against the night sky. The battle with the Ironfangs had ended, yet the aftermath lingered, quiet vigilance, rebuilding, and reflection. The pack had survived both external assaults and internal treachery, and now, the final test awaited, the ceremonial acknowledgement of the Luna, a role that symbolized wisdom, loyalty, and guardianship within the Alpha's life. Arya moved through the stronghold with measured steps, her presence commanding without arrogance. Every corridor she passed, every guard she observed, every subtle motion of the pack reminded her of the responsibilities she carried, not only as Kale's protector but as a guide and sentinel for the Silverfangs. Her mind catalogued the state of defenses, patrols, and potential vulnerabilities, yet her heart carried a quiet pride in how far the pack had come. Kale approached her in the courtyard, the moonlight highlighting the strength and resolve in his posture. Tonight, he said quietly, we honor what has been earned. Not by birthright, not by proclamation, but by actions, loyalty, and the courage to stand against all threats. You have proven yourself, Arya, beyond measure. Arya inclined her head, expression calm. I do not act for recognition, Kale. I act for the safety of the pack and the preservation of our strength. That is enough. He smiled faintly, though his eyes remained steady. It is enough for the pack, but tonight, you will be recognized. The ceremony is not just tradition, it is affirmation of the bond that protects every member of the Silverfangs. Your role as Luna will be acknowledged, officially and irrevocably. The council convened in the Grand Hall, banners of the Silverfangs fluttering in the soft torchlight. Elders, warriors, scouts, and apprentices filled the chamber, their expressions a mixture of respect, curiosity, and quiet admiration. Arya entered with Kale, their presence commanding attention without a word. The eldest of the council stepped forward, his voice carrying the weight of generations. Tonight, we honor a guardian, a sentinel who has demonstrated unwavering courage, insight, and loyalty to the Silverfang pack. Through trials of deception, battle, and strategy, she has guided our Alpha, strengthened our defenses, and ensured the survival of all who dwell within these walls. Arya remained composed, her gaze scanning the assembly, noting subtle nods and murmurs of approval. Kale's hand rested lightly on the hilt of his sword, a silent acknowledgement of her achievements. The elder continued, by the council's decree, and in recognition of deeds that have shaped the survival and unity of our pack, Arya is hereby named Luna of the Silverfangs, the Alpha's steadfast protector, guide, and confidant. A murmur of affirmation rippled through the hall. The significance of the title was not lost on anyone present. To be Luna was to stand as a symbol of unwavering loyalty, strategic insight, and guardianship, a role that complemented the Alpha's strength and ensured the pack's enduring unity. Kale stepped forward, his gaze locking with Arya's. The bond between Alpha and Luna is forged in trust, respect, and shared purpose. You have proven your worth not through words, but through action. From this moment, Luna, your guidance will continue to shape our pack, and your vigilance will protect it from every threat, seen and unseen. Arya inclined her head, her expression resolute. I accept this responsibility, not for honor, but for duty. The Silverfang's safety and unity are my priority, and I will act with foresight, vigilance, and unwavering commitment. Every challenge faced, every threat encountered, will be met with preparation and resolve. That is the role I embrace. The council nodded, the assembly's energy shifting to one of unity and acknowledgement. The ceremony was not merely symbolic, it was the culmination of countless trials, strategies, and challenges that had defined both Kale and Arya's leadership. As the moonlight flooded the hall, Arya and Kale moved to the battlements, overlooking the valley where the Ironfangs had once advanced. The distant forest seemed calm, but the air carried the sense of unseen threats, the ever-present reminder that vigilance was eternal. Kale's voice was quiet, almost reverent. We have faced betrayal, ambush, and siege. We have endured deception, internal strife, and relentless assaults. And yet, the pack stands strong. Because of you, Arya, we endure. Arya's gaze remained fixed on the horizon. Endurance is not a gift, it is the result of preparation, observation, and decisive action. The Silverfangs are strong today because we acted with foresight and unity. But tomorrow, challenges will arise again. We must remain vigilant, always. Kale stepped beside her, a silent acknowledgement of partnership. Then we remain vigilant together. Alpha and Luna, protector and sentinel. Every decision, every action, every strategy, united. Arya's eyes finally met his, steady and unwavering. Together. Always. The night passed in quiet reflection. Scouts and guards maintained vigilant patrols, traps and defensive mechanisms were checked and reinforced, and the Silverfangs rested under the watchful eyes of their Alpha and Luna. The stronghold was secure, the pack united, and the lessons of betrayal, strategy, and battle etched into the memory of every warrior present. In the following days, Arya guided the Silverfang pack in refining defenses, optimizing patrols, and mentoring younger warriors in observation and strategy. Kale led the council with renewed confidence, his decisions strengthened by the counsel of a protector whose insight was unmatched. Together, they became the embodiment of unity, vigilance, and foresight. Word of their victory and the rise of the Luna spread to neighboring clans. Allies acknowledged the Silverfang's strength, while rivals reconsidered their approaches, wary of the combined strategy and intelligence that now guided the pack. The Ironfangs, though defeated, remained a distant threat, their future plans curtailed but never erased. Arya continued her role, ever watchful, ever precise. She did not seek recognition, but the pack understood her significance. The title of Luna was not merely ceremonial, it was a testament to skill, insight, and unwavering commitment. She stood as the cornerstone of the Silverfang's security, the Alpha's trusted partner, and a symbol of strength without dominance, vigilance without fear. Kale often observed her silently, recognizing the depth of her influence. The battles fought, the plots uncovered, the sieges defended, none of it would have succeeded without her guidance. Yet she carried it with humility, never overstepping, never claiming power, only ensuring the pack's survival and unity. The Silverfang stronghold thrived in the months that followed. Walls were strengthened, patrols became more sophisticated, and the lessons of previous threats became ingrained in the culture of the pack. Arya's strategies were taught, her methods adapted for every warrior, and her presence became a source of stability and assurance. And on nights when the moon hung high, Arya and Kale would stand together atop the battlements, surveying the valley, the forest, and the horizon beyond. The Ironfangs remained a distant shadow, the past treachery a reminder, but the pack endured, fortified by vigilance, foresight, and unbroken unity. Arya, the Luna Ascendant, had cemented her place, not through dominance, not through title alone, but through the quiet strength of insight, strategy, and unwavering dedication. Kale, the Alpha, led with confidence, bolstered by the presence of a protector whose wisdom ensured that no threat, internal or external, could destabilize their home. The Silverfang pack stood ready for every challenge to come, guided by the partnership of Alpha and Luna, a bond forged in trials, tested in battle, and proven in the crucible of leadership. And as the wind whispered through the trees, carrying the scent of pine and earth, Arya knew that vigilance was eternal, yet so too was the enduring strength of unity, trust, and courage. Together, they had faced shadows, betrayal, and war, and together, they would meet whatever destiny awaited. The Luna had ascended, and the Silverfangs would never falter again.